Alright, people. Review of the week time. So, a lot to talk about, a lot to get into, a lot to preview. It's been a week where there's not been a crazy amount of news. I mean, Chris Eubank Jr. probably signing with Boxer, which we'll talk about now in a wee bit, is probably the height of the news. It's been the last, I want to say, fortnight in terms of just kind of boxing news. It's been, there's not been a lot to really kind of sink your teeth into and dissect. But the end of end of July is looking quite good. We've got some good cards coming up over the next few weeks, and I thought we'd start this by previewing Jaron Boots Ennis making his Matchroom debut in his first defense of his IBF title against David Avanesian. Have a look there on screen. This will be shown live on DAZN, the global home of boxing. 150 fights per year, best in boxing, just chucking that out there. In the comment section, you'll see a link to DAZN, a G-Man link to there. If you haven't signed up for DAZN, there you go. You'll also see on screen, I have some of my own videos up there now, so there will be some G-Man videos on DAZN moving forward. I'll be sending them in, they'll be getting uploaded. So, on top of that, you'll actually probably get some extra G-Man content, you know. Just thought I'd sweeten the deal with that, you know. Just thought I'd sweeten it up with that. But all will be in the comment section. It'll be pinned in the comment section. It'll be in the description as well. Go over there and have a look. Let's talk about Jaron Ennis versus David Avanesian. You know, originally this was meant to be a mandatory defense. Meant to be a mandatory defense against Conor Crowley, I think is how you say his name, was it Cowley? Now, I hadn't seen much of him. And obviously Boots Ennis, we know. I mean, just honestly, the talent that Boots Ennis has is just... I can't emphasize enough how talented this kid is, how much he has to his game, and how high I think his ceiling will be. The one thing about Ennis that kind of, you could say he needs to improve on, is defense. He does get hit a little bit. And I think maybe he has, you know, a bit of faith in his chin. Because I remember in one of his fights, I can't remember which one it was, but he's getting hit with a few right hands and he wasn't adjusting. And you can be a little bit, you look at that, you're just kind of like, ooh, adjust to that. Because it's all well and good against you know, a nobody or, you know, whoever the hell that is. But then you kind of look and you're like, if that was someone with a bit more power, you don't want to be giving them clean right hands. Now, he's in there against David Avanesian. Some people have said this is actually a harder test. Avanesian, we know him quite well. A very good... Eddie Hearn knows Avanesian oh too well. Avanesian is the sort of guy... Avanesian is European level. And he has held a version of a welterweight title. It was a regular belt. I think he won it. I can't remember who he won it again. I think he might have won it off Shane Mosley Sr. Lost it to Lamont Peterson. That was kind of the level that Avanesian was at, real fringe world level, or world level at welterweight. Certainly back then, back about 7-8 years ago, maybe a bit more. World level there, you needed to be flipping good. It wasn't just a case of, you know, you can get to world level and see. You needed to be almost elite to get to world level at welterweight. So Avanesian is a fringe world level, European level fighter in there against Boots Ennis. I imagine Avanesian is going to get beaten. He's coming off the back of a win, and prior to that he was stopped brutally in 6 rounds by Terence Crawford. And Avanesian had built up such a good run. He beat Kerman Leharaga twice in Spain. He beat Josh Kelly in the UK. He was knocking guys out. He was defending his European title. He was looking good. And then we saw what a truly elite fighter can do. Crawford never looked remotely troubled. I wonder, will Boots have the same... See, Boots is different. Like, Boots would probably be... Well, he is more aggressive. He's fast. Probably faster. In fact, he definitely is. The athleticism Boots Ennis has is incredible. So it's going to be interesting to see how quick he deals with Avanesian. I expect him to deal with him relatively quickly. Sky Nicholson makes a defense of her title on the undercard as well. I still have never got around to watching one of Sky Nicholson's fights yet. I just haven't got around to it. I maybe will have a glance at this one, see how she looks. She's mentioning... I actually seen she's actually started up a YouTube channel. I was watching a couple of her videos. She seems like a cool girl, so I might give that one a glance. But I see on the undercard, and it's just the name that jumps out at me, a guy called J. Major Hackett. Alright, he is 8-0 with 7 knockouts, only 21 years old. Alright, only 21 years old. He's fighting out of the welterweight division. When I look at his resume, I do vaguely... I've heard the name Adrian Gutierrez, who was his last fight and his last victory. He's in there with Peter Dobson. Now, Peter Dobson earlier this year fought Conor Benn. You may remember that fight. He hasn't actually fought since then. Peter Dobson, what jumped out at me immediately, and it's not a good thing, was, and I mean no disrespect, it's the truth, was how slow he was. I mean, I've never seen a welterweight this slow. Like, honestly, like, it was painful. Conor Benn couldn't really put a dent in him. He won some rounds, Peter Dobson. He genuinely did. And, you know, it was Conor Benn was the rightful winner, but Peter Dobson won some rounds, and you looked at it and thought, okay, what can you do? The speed is a big problem. Like, I mean, I've never seen a welterweight that slow. How good is Major Hackett? How good is he? He's 21 years old, seems to have a bit of a puncher's reputation. That's going to be one to keep an eye on. It's only a 10-rounder. I think the Ben Dobson fight was a 12-rounder. Yeah, it was. So that's going to be interesting. That's going to be a very interesting fight. Just purely for, again, Peter Dobson. I kind of know what to kind of get with him. He's durable, seems to take a decent shot. So let's see how Major Hackett gets on. The British Boxing Board of Control have ordered Fabio Wadley to defend his title in a rematch against Fraser Clark. Purse bids are on August 14th. You would imagine there wouldn't be any issue with that. It was rumoured that that was going to be on the Joshua Wembley show. It isn't, and I doubt they're going to announce it now. If they announce kind of names, they're probably going to be announcing fillers, you know, the undercard type fights, but, you know, prelims more so, those type of fights. So I doubt they're going to announce anything on the JJ undercard with that, but when are they going to announce it? You know, Ben Shalom has talked about potentially doing that fight on pay-per-view. I completely disagree with Ben Shalom if that's his rationale, if that's his thinking, because I just don't think it's a pay-per-view level fight. I think it's a great fight. I think that both guys put on a great show back in March, but it isn't at that level. It's not. Neither guy is that big a name. I know Fraser Clark, but he's not really that big a name. I know Fabio Wadley in Ipswich, his association with Ipswich Town Football Club, Portman Road might be a place to do it. It would be, and Ben Shalom seemed keen to do kind of the football aspect of it. You know, Chris Smith in the Vitality Stadium in Bournemouth. He has Oakwell, I think is, I can't remember his name now, Craig Simpson, is that the guy's name? Who's fighting Zach Chelly, I think he's fighting in Oakwell, which is obviously the home of Barnsley FC. They did the React Poor Billum Smith rematch in Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace Stadium. So Ben Shalom is trying to implement that football end to it. And I've said in separate videos, that only works if the fighter has a real affiliation and a known affiliation with the club. You know, a lot of football fans, they're not stupid. You can't just, you know, put on a United jersey and be like, I'm a United fan, you know, support me. They're not going to do it. Even if you're talking about like Barnsley or Ipswich, which would not be on the level of a Man United in terms of, you know, fanfare, they still know. You know, Josh Warrington, lifelong Leeds fan. Lee Wood, lifelong Nottingham Forest fan. Same with Bill Smith and Bournemouth. It's very different if someone just, let's just say Fulham in southwest London, Craven Cottage. You get a fighter from there. I'm probably picking the worst possible because you're kind of like, you know, a fighter from southwest London near Fulham. They're probably not going to be boxing, but you get what I mean. They just put on a Fulham jersey. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Fulham. Come watch me. It's like, yeah, it's going to be lukewarm because a lot of football fans are not going to flock to that unless like you have a proper like Tony Bellew in Everton. You know, Eddie Hearn was doing that before it was even cool to do it because Bellew was Everton FC true and true. You know, so let's see what they do with that. I was actually gonna I'm just worried about the phone's life because I only charged it before going on, and this phone does not last long. I'm trying to get as much news in. I done a video during the week about Simon Jordan and comments he made on TalkSport with the Daniel Dubois Anthony Joshua fight looming ever closer, and he was saying words to the effect of Dubois could give Anthony Joshua PTSD if he lands on him, and basically kind of. It's a weird one because they're kind of making, how would you even say it, like kind of hinting that, you know, oh, Joshua has questionable heart. Does he? Does he really have that much of a questionable heart? You know, Joshua was completely spent against Vladimir Klitschko, down very heavily in round number 6. If he had questionable heart, if he didn't have the will to win, he would have folded pretty damn quick that night now, wouldn't he? Against Andy Ruiz, when he got stopped, Carl Froch was making it out as though Joshua quit. And I think Simon Jordan kind of always goes back to that, the Andy Ruiz fight. At the end of the day, Joshua had been dropped twice. He'd been badly hurt. He was a mile behind on all the scorecards. I don't think he quit in that fight. Just because I don't think he quit. Anthony Joshua obviously would have known that the race is probably run. and I ain't going to be able to get back into this fight. I'm a mile behind. I'm going to have to take him out. Can't I even have the strength to take him out? I've been down 4 times, and he looks as fresh as anything, and he's hurting me. I'm not saying that he quit. I don't think he did. But they used that as if, that was adversity and Joshua couldn't come through with this, that, and the other. Well, listen, Tyson Fury, when he went through adversity against Alexander Usyk and he lost, again, what did he do? Was he gracious in defeat? No, he turned around and said, you only got the decision because of the conflict in your country. And he still hasn't apologised for that. But that's okay. It's nothing. That's nothing. And yes, Anthony Joshua did do something disrespectful through the belts out the ring. Apologised. He apologised. And it was wrong what Joshua did that night against Alexander Usyk. It was completely wrong. But at least he held his hands up in the air and apologised. It's so... I just find it very strange the way Anthony Joshua is not perfect. And believe me, I've been called an Anthony Joshua hater loads of times on here because I've criticised him when I felt it's appropriate to criticise him. When he's given a performance that I've looked at and someone like Eddie Hearn or someone has said, could Anthony Joshua, based off that performance, beat a Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk? And I would say, well, based off that performance like Jermaine Franklin, no. In fact, based off that performance, he's there for the taking against the top guys. And that's just me being true. That's me being factual. I say factual, we don't know. But I don't think Anthony Joshua, who fought Jermaine Franklin, would have been worrying a Tyson Fury, an Alexander Usyk, who would say a Martin Bakoli, someone like that, even a Daniel Dubois. But the Anthony Joshua we have now, he looks a bit more spiteful, looks a bit more confident. I'm saying, yeah. I wouldn't pick him over Alexander Usyk. That's the one I wouldn't. I think Alexander Usyk has his number. But I'd pick him over most heavyweights, yeah. I would. I think he seems to have the bit between his teeth again. He seems to be reveling being the challenger. And I like what I'm seeing. So and when I see people be unfair with their criticisms, like when I was talking about Carl Froch last week, I couldn't believe when I was reading what he was saying to Simon Jordan a year ago and some of the things he was coming out with, that Klitschko retired and was out of the ring for 2 years. November 2015 to April 2017 is not 2 years. It's not even a year and a half. And retired. He spent the whole of 2016 chasing Tyson Fury, trying to get that rematch. It wasn't his fault it didn't happen. And I'm thinking of doing a video on this. How certain boxing figures and kind of people like Simon Jordan, how they're overly critical of Anthony Joshua, where the criticism is just a different level. I mean, if you want to critique him and say, against, Otto Wallin, it was a good performance, but he knew Otto Wallin inside and out, it's fair enough. It's fair critique. It's completely fair. You could say that, and you could say, well, how good was Otto Wallin? Again, it's very fair. But to act like, Anthony Joshua, everyone he's fought and beat is just garbage, and, Joseph Parker's no good. That was an old Klitschko. It's like, now, hang on a minute, and what? They'd be saying stuff like, look at the competition that Joshua was fought. He's fighting this guy. It's like, yeah, but Fury fought Dylan White too. Fury fought Otto Wallin too. And he struggled a lot more. So it's Simon Jordan. I don't know. It's just really strange the way he just seems to have that chip on his shoulder with regards Anthony Joshua. The zone price for Crawford Madrimov will be $80 on ESPN Plus. Oh, so it's going to be, that was ESPN Plus. The UK price is, well, if you have the subscription, £24.99, £24. If you don't, £23. Right. It is a great card, though. That's why I will say it is a very, very good card. But yeah, £23. Wow. Naoya Inoue versus TJ Doheny is now reportedly finalised for September in Tokyo. I love Naoya Inoue. Respect TJ Doheny. He's been doing great on the road. He really has. But I seen TJ Doheny get lit up and dropped by Michael Conlon a couple of years ago. And yeah, he's looked good on the road, but he is not going to give I look at that and I just think, good Lord. Honestly, I just think, good Lord, that's not going to end well for TJ Doheny at all. And I love him in a way, I really do. He's one of my favourite fighters. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Canelo Alvarez reportedly remains in talks, despite the fact that now Eubank is with Ben Shalom, who's negotiating on behalf of Eubank and trying to make the fight with Al Heyman, and that is according to Dan Raphael. Let's talk about that really, really quickly. So Eubank Jr. announced yesterday that he has signed he didn't use a promotional deal. What was it? A participation or something like that deal with Boxer, which is it's a strange-ish way to term it. And again, maybe that's just the terminology Boxer use, I don't know. Basically, he went from fighting on Sky to fighting on Sky, basically. He's with Boxer, which, as I said in the video, he's probably the only UK promoter, in terms of major UK promoters, Eubank Jr. hasn't upset in some way. How long will that last? The Canelo fight, I see that fight almost being unlikely now. Because Eubank Jr., if he is to have something and do something with Boxer in the UK, do UK pay-per-views, you hear the names of Conor Benn, Billy Joe Saunders, stuff like that. If Canelo goes in there and obliterates him, will it knock him? Will that knock the value? Like, you think it's like Ben Shalom. I've signed Chris Eubank Jr. First fight he's taken, he's getting lit up by Canelo. What happens then? You know, will Ben Shalom maybe say, oh, is that maybe a front? Ben Shalom like, oh, we're negotiating. Yeah, we're negotiating, and make the negotiation so bad that, you know, oh, Canelo's going to go and fight Edgar Berlanga. You plausible deniability saying, you know, oh, we tried, they didn't want it. You know, Eubank Jr. is that dangerous. And then they, you know, look to do a Billy Joe Saunders rematch, which in the UK, that's pay-per-view. Definitely, 100% that's pay-per-view. Canelo against... In reality, like, I'm looking at this from a kind of maximize revenue. Canelo versus Berlanga, even though I don't like the fight, it makes the most sense and it makes the most money in America, because you have that Puerto Rican crowd who will come to support Berlanga. You'll have Mexico for Canelo. Clash on a Mexican holiday. Boom, you do it in Vegas. You're going to do numbers. You're going to do numbers. Seriously, it's going to happen. You're going to do numbers. You do Eubank. Are people from the UK even going to travel? Like, you get some, but would many? I really don't know. In terms of what Boxer, like, that's Boxer's biggest signing. He's the only legit guy who could do a pay-per-view out of Boxer stable currently present. And I mean that when I look at it, you know, Whitaker couldn't do it. Wadley couldn't do it. Clark couldn't do it. Eubank would be the only one I would look at and say, yeah, he could do it. With the right opponent, that is, of course. Now, saying that, even without the right opponent, you could do a very big Saturday fight night. You could do that. You certainly could. So it's a good signing for Boxer. It's the biggest name they have on their books, really. So, yeah. Let's see what else we have here. You know, Shakur Stevenson, he is talking a lot. And he is on Twitter a lot. And the rumor mill is that, you know, the likes of Eddie Hearn are, you know, looking to sign Shakur Stevenson. And a lot of it is down with the backlash, because Shakur's fights have not been entertaining, and I have to be frank, you know, I find it very, like, I find myself skipping through a lot. I will go back and have a look and talk about it, review of the week, and have a look, but sometimes you're just like, you could literally watch one round, and then that will be what the fight was. You could literally watch a round of Shakur Stevenson and say, well, that's the full 12-round fight, because that's essentially what it is. His fights are not entertaining. They're just not. And we're in a stage now with boxing where I think that there needs to be entertainment in fights. It doesn't need to be Gaddy Ward every single fight, but I think this whole slick defensive moving, hit and not get hit, keep it at range, almost like have a glorified sparring session that Floyd Mayweather really popularized once he hit 147 pounds. I think that day is gone. And I think that fighters who do that, they're going to suffer. They're going to suffer, not in terms of health or anything like that, but it's going to be hard. Their fights are going to be a hard sell. They're going to be a very, very hard sell, and I think that's going to be the case for Shakur Stevenson. I really, truly do. Now, Johnny Fisher, his next fight will take place on the undercard of Regis Prograis versus Jack Catterall in Manchester, opponent to be confirmed. He could fight this week if he wanted to. It was that easy against Alan Babbage. I've said it once and I'll say it again about Johnny Fisher. I'm still not convinced. I still think that his ceiling is reasonably low. If he won a British title, I would be very surprised. Very surprised if he won a British title. I don't think he will. I think that his level is low. Doesn't come across as a bad human being at all. I think that the Bosch and stuff like that, I don't particularly like that. I don't understand, and I know someone left a comment and said, you know, I think it's kind of a genre people do enjoy. You know, and I'm talking about his dad, you know, Johnny Senior, Big John Senior, where, you know, I mean, the man is literally eating himself to death, and people enjoy that. I don't understand. I can't understand how anyone could look at that and enjoy it, but people have told me that, you know, people do genuinely enjoy watching this. I don't know why. You know, answers on a postcard there. I genuinely don't know why. Because he is, look, like, honestly, like I look at Johnny Fisher Sr. and I'm worried for the guy. I look at him and I'm thinking, good Lord. You know, I mean, I'd be worried for that guy, seriously. But the whole gimmick itself, it draws fans in, definitely. He has that contingent of fans who will come and pay good money to see him. I mean, the Copper Box looked absolutely packed on Saturday night. And I'm sure that, no disrespect to Jack Cattrall, but he is not someone who is going to be, you know, selling out arenas. No disrespect. Johnny Fisher there. It's a bit like Florian Marcoux. Do you remember when Florian Marcoux, who was it? There was a boxer shot. It might have been a Richard Riakporhe fight. It might have been that. Where Richard Riakporhe, it might have been when he fought Ola Duradola. Bear this in mind, right? Florian Marcoux was on the undercard, but his fight happened after the main event. And what it did, because Marcoux, a big ticket seller, big ticket seller, has a big following in Albania. He made that arena look bigger than it was. Was it him or was it Savannah Marshall? I can't remember the fight it was. But he went on after the main event, and it made the main event look bigger because the arena looked packed. All right, and that's why you need ticket sellers. That's why ticket sellers, whether they're good or bad, promoters want them, because you don't want a really talented fighter like Jack Cattrall and then an arena half empty. It looks bad. And then you have, you know, Johnny Fisher who sells tickets, and you're like, oh, it looks a lot busier now. Are they all here to see Jack Cattrall? Well, not really, but, you know, it's a nice view. It's a nice view nonetheless. What else do we have? This has been going on a while. What else do we have? Is there much else? Anthony Joshua on the perception. Oh, this is an interesting one. Eddie Hearn on the perception that Anthony Joshua is fragile. AJ has a really good chin. I wouldn't go that far. Watch the shots he took in the Klitschko fight. Yeah, the big right hand would have decapitated a normal man. Marius Vac took those shots for 12 rounds straight, never went down. AJ got up from that, and even Andy Ruiz, he kept getting up. Alexander Usyk hit him with the kitchen sink and never took him out. Alexander Usyk never hit him as flush as he did Tyson Fury. And with 30 seconds to go in that last round, and bear in mind the round did end early, because there was definitely 10 seconds were left or so, but it definitely wasn't 10 seconds. So you don't know what would have happened in the Usyk fight. But Usyk did hit him aplenty, but he never hit him as clean as he did Tyson Fury. I might do a separate video. This is an interesting one. I think Eddie Hearn has opened up a can of worms there. Let's do a video. I'm going to do a separate video because I haven't recorded anything for tomorrow yet. There we go. Let's have a talk about AJ and his chin in a separate video. I'll leave it there for now, people. I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Peace.